Boker Tov. I remember many years ago, there was a man in the community of blessed memories now in the next world who should have a beautiful Gan Eden, paradise. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. And I had a very warm and close relationship with him, and he loved the shul, and we loved each other. And when it came time to acquire our first building, I went to him and I asked him for a very sizable donation, but he was an extremely wealthy man. Not just wealthy, extremely wealthy. And while it was a significant donation, it was something that he could clearly afford. And he looked at me and he said, Rabbi, you know I love you and I love the shul and I would love to help you, but I can't. I said, why? And he said, told me his life story. He said, I grew up in a large family and my father died very young and I was in high school. And I had to leave high school and start working to support my mother and my family as the oldest sibling. And he said, even though now he was an older man already, and he said, I've become very, very wealthy and successful, and he understood that. He said, I understand that I'm very wealthy, but emotionally I'm still that teenager who is afraid that his family won't have what to eat tomorrow. That's part of my psyche now. And he said, as much as I want to give you this money that you need, because I love the shul and I love you, I simply can't do it because I still worry, he said, that what's if I won't have money tomorrow? And this was a man who was worth hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. But he said, because I care so much, I'm going to do something. I'm going to help you raise the money, which he went and he helped me raise the money from friends and other people. And he contributed a small amount, but he couldn't do the large amount. In this week's parsha, we read the opening verse about Isaac. Isaac gets married at the age of 40 years old. And who does he marry? The opening verse says, he marries Rebecca. And then the verse says, it's actually the second verse of this week's Torah portion. He marries Rebecca, who was the daughter of Bisuel from the city of Padan Aram. And she was the daughter of Bisuel and the sister of Laban from the Aramean. So Rashi asks a question. Just last week, we were all in shul 2 days ago. We read the Torah portion. We read the whole story, how Eliezer went to Aram Naraim to find a wife for Isaac, and he comes to the well, and he meets Rebecca, and then he meets the father, Bethuel, and he meets the brother. We read the whole story about the family. Why does the Torah have to repeat? He marries Rebecca, who is the daughter of Bethuel, the sister of Laban from the city of Aram Naraim. We just read it 2 days ago. I mean, if we read it 6 months ago, maybe we forgot. The Torah has to remind us. But we just read it in the last chapter. Why does the Torah have to repeat it? And Rashi gives a magnificent answer. Rashi says, the Torah repeats where she comes from, who her father was, who her brother was, to pay honor to Rebecca. The Rebecca grew up in a home of idolatry. Her father was an idolater, her brother was an idolater, the society was idolaters, wicked people. But she didn't remain trapped in her upbringing. She was able to transcend it. She was able to go on and choose a new course for her future by marrying Isaac, becoming the daughter-in-law of Sarah and Abraham, and clinging to the monotheistic faith and the traditions and the heritage of Abraham. She was able to change course. And that's why the Torah repeats all this information, not to give us the information, we know the information. It's repeating it to teach us a lesson. That no matter how you grew up in life, you shouldn't say, well, this is my upbringing, this is the way I was taught in my home, in my family, in my community, and therefore this is the way I am. No, maybe that's the way you were when you were a child, but doesn't mean that as an adult you can't choose a better course for yourself. We all grew up with beautiful homes, but maybe there were certain things that weren't so good. But we shouldn't remain captive to those old ways. As adults, we are free to choose a better course for ourselves. And that's why the Torah repeats, to the credit of Rebecca, that she was able to transcend her upbringing and her background. You know, when you go to the circus, they have these huge elephants, and they keep them in place until they're ready to do the show. And the question is, how do they keep the elephants in place? These elephants are huge. So what they have is a string around the foot of the elephant with a peg, and they knock the peg into the ground, into the wood, and that keeps the elephant in place. And you say, 1 minute, this elephant weighs 20 tons. A little string, a rope with a peg holds the elephant in place. The elephant can give one yank and not only pull the peg, but pull the whole floorboard out and walk away. How do they keep the elephant restrained with a string and a peg? And the true fascinating answer is that when the baby elephant is born, they tie a rope around the string and they knock the peg in the ground. And the little elephant gives a yank, can't get out. Tries again, he gives a yank. He does it 10 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, 2,000 times. And finally he conditions his brain to say, I can't get out of this peg. I can't pull myself free from this rope around my leg. And so he stops pulling. He just accepts the status quo. And now that he's grown to this huge, powerful animal, he still lives with the mindset that he can't free himself from that little string and peg in the ground. And the same thing is with human nature. Sometimes we get conditioned in our childhood with certain beliefs that come from our home, from our school, from our teachers, from our environment. You can't do this, you can't do that, you're stuck in this, this is your nature, this is your temperament, this is your personality. And we get older and bigger, we don't realize we have the freedom to choose a new course. And that's what Rivka does, and that's why when we bless our daughters on Friday night, we say, may you be like the matriarch Rebecca, that in life you should choose your future. Don't make excuses for your past. Choose a brighter and a better future for yourself. It's in your power to choose what you want.